just make a wish.
More funding, of course. The thing with funding is we can get funding for programs.
Could you please introduce us briefly about Altered Minds?
Okay, so I'm Grace Eidse. I'm the executive director of Altered Minds, Inc., Altered Minds. I established the company as a not-for-profit company in 2005. So the name means that I chose the name Altered Minds because when we learn each other's stories, we learn from each other's experience, we are transformed. We have been working with immigrants and refugees since 2005. We were doing orientation for newcomers to Manitoba, and then more recently we moved to the core area of Winnipeg, and we expanded our mandate to include services for people of all backgrounds. Indigenous, mainstream Canadians, immigrants, refugees, everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, could you please introduce us briefly about the different projects right now is carried out by Altered Minds?
Okay. I'll start first with our one piece from our history, because many people know Altered Minds. They don't know the name Altered Minds, but they know the name Entry Program. So we used to run an orientation program called Entry Program.
I do.
Yeah,
I know.
You know it.
Yeah, I know.
For 15 years we ran this program, and so that was maybe 62,000 people came through our orientation program in those 15 years. 62,000 immigrants learned about life in Canada from attending this program. It was very successful, but unfortunately we lost our funding from the federal government in 2019, and so we came to a smaller space here. Our programs that we have now, we've been delivering Settlement Online Pre-Arrival, or SOPA program, since 2014. So we work with approved permanent residents before they come to Canada. We help them with credentials recognition, writing Canadian-style resumes and cover letters, targeted cover letters and resumes, and connecting with employers in Manitoba before they arrive. It's a national program, so we have partners in all the different provinces. So my team here works with people that are coming to Manitoba, and other teams work with people going to other provinces. So SOPA program. The other very important program we run is called the Computers for Life. So we teach basic computer skills. We have 2 or 3 levels of training, and we are partnered with an agency called Computers for Schools. They refurbish computers, so they take used computers and fix them and recycle them. And so everyone who attends our computer program gets to take a free refurbished laptop, or desktop, home with them. All our graduates get to take it. So for many people, this is their first computer. And then the final program, which has just become amazing recently, was we got 2 years of funding from Canadian Heritage through their anti-racism initiative. And we developed an Indigenous orientation program for newcomers. Yeah, so we developed an Indigenous orientation for young people, and we call ours the Turtle and Drum Youth Leadership Series. We call it Turtle because we are said to be on the turtle's back, that our continent of North America is like a turtle in the water, right? And so we are living on the turtle's back. And the drum, because in many cultures, I know African culture, drumming is important, a communication tool. So our program is to bring Indigenous and newcomer folks together, so Indigenous people can tell about our history, and newcomer can say, oh, we have a similar experience back home, and then together they can build understanding and positive relationships.
As a CEO, what's your everyday responsibilities?
So CEO, in a not-for-profit world, we don't call ourselves chief executive officers, we call ourselves executive directors. Yeah, so I would be called an ED rather than a CEO. What I do most of all right now is I write grant proposals. I write proposals for funding. That's almost my full-time job. is to seek funding. So, for example, recently we just put in a proposal to Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada. They opened a call for proposals which will be for a 5-year agreement.
As a newcomer, we have heard New Immigrant Center. Right, it's 100 Adelaide Street, right?
Right.
And we know in downtown Polish Avenue, there's Manitoba Start.
Yes.
So there are the mines. So what's the connections or what's the difference between all those entry programs, entry
services and programs, organizations. In the past, the provincial government, Manitoba government, was very strong in serving newcomers. The federal government would give money to the provinces, like to Manitoba, and Manitoba would decide how to respond to the needs of immigrants. So Manitoba was very active with this. We are a good size, we are a small province, not many people, and most of the people live in Winnipeg. And Winnipeg is not huge, so it was easy to have centralized services. So as I was telling you before, the provincial government decided Manitoba Start would be the doorway. So everyone would go to Manitoba Start because they are an employment agency and everyone's thinking about jobs. So you go to Manitoba Start, you register, you get connected with an employment counselor, and then you would come to Altered Minds for entry program, for orientation about life in general, how to find a family doctor, how to take the bus, how to open a bank account, all those, how to register your kids for school, how to find a house, a apartment, all those things. Once you finished the orientation, then you would go to WELARC, the Winnipeg English Language Assessment and Referral Center, for your benchmark test. The benchmark test would tell you, okay, what your English skills were, and if they were high enough, maybe you didn't need to take English classes. You just continue with your employment counselor and your job search. But those who needed English classes would then go to English schools. At a certain point in 2012, the federal government said, no, we don't want to give money to the provinces now. We want to manage all the settlement services across Canada. But what is good about the new system is that people living in the South End or in the North End, they have services closer to them now. So they don't have to travel by bus to come downtown for services. So that, in a sense, that was a positive thing that happened.
Could you please share us a little bit the story about your family, like your parents? I know they moved to Africa, and you may grow up from Africa. So could you please tell us some story about your parents, about what difficulties they conquered, and also yourself, your difficulties you conquered.
My story is very interesting. I always am thankful to my family, to my parents, that they were adventurous and that they wanted to travel and live in Africa. As I told you earlier, my grandparents arrived here as adults in Manitoba. They were farmers, and so the land was inexpensive, and there was so they got a lot of farmland, and they had big families to help them farm. My father wanted to be a missionary. He wanted to go overseas, and so eventually my parents, and my mother was a nurse, my father was a pastor, and eventually they went before my oldest sister was born here. Then when she was just a few months old, my parents went to Africa on a ship. And of course, we lived in a small village. There was nothing built yet. Just the grass huts that the people lived in. So we always spent 4 years in Africa and then came back to Canada for 2 years. 4 and 2, 4 and 2. That was kind of our rhythm as I was growing up. In the first 4 years, my father built a hospital, built a church. Together with the Africans, we built schools, and my mother worked in the hospital my father had built. She served as a nurse. And I guess, it was a cross-cultural experience that I value very much. Every time coming back to Canada, I would go through culture shock again, because coming back here was very different. Even though I was born here on one of my parents' vacations or furloughs here, it was, life is so different here from there. So I don't know about the challenges. I think what I value always is how the experience helped me relate to people from different cultures. And I know very much what immigrants have to go through when they come here. The advantage I had, though, was that I wasn't a refugee. You know, I wasn't escaping anything. I wasn't escaping war. You know, we made the choice to go. So, of course, I empathize. You know, my heart goes out to people who are forced to leave their home countries and to have to go to new places. Because not only do they have to change life completely, but they also have the trauma to deal with, and maybe many family members back home that they are worried about. So, so that's tough then, you know.
So just look ahead, like for another 5 or 10 years. What expectations you have for your own life and for your organization?
When you work in the not-for-profit sector, you bring together people who want to help others. That's the purpose. The purpose is to help others. So you find people, you bring people to you that have a heart, who care and have compassion for other people. And I feel that that's one thing that my organization has done really well, is to bring people together that love other people. And we all enjoy going to work. We don't dread going to work. We never have a day when we wake up in the morning and say, "Oh no, I have to go to work," right?
Monday, oh,
Monday, I know, right? And so
yeah, Friday,
yeah, Friday, right? Some people live for the weekend, but in my agency, I think in this agency in Altered Minds, people always loved to come to work. And if one day you didn't have energy or some reason, you know, you were stressed about something, I would just tell my staff the good advice somebody gave me. My friend told me, just go out there and love people. And so that's all you need to do, is realize that your life purpose is right here, that if you care about people, your day is going to be okay. So regardless of the struggles. So if I look into the future, I feel like you know, as an agency, I've had to pivot. We were a big agency. We got, you know, $1.6 million in funding at the height of our Altered Minds programs. Now we are more on a budget, like about 400,000. We've had to, you know, squeeze our belts. But the one thing we have not lost is that ability to care about people. And I think our programs and all our staff still feel strongly that what they're doing is good. So it's possible that I want Altered Minds to live even after I retire. It may not. It may not outlast me, you know. Funding has been tough. The government is not giving money so easily. Even donations from rich people, there are not so many anymore. Everyone's tightening their belts. But if it ends, we say that I would feel like this has been valuable. Everything we have done has been valuable for the world. It has brought positive change in the world.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And just make a wish. So we hope that we can help you to achieve your goal or your wish when we continue doing our channel, and when we have the opportunity to know more friends and more resources.
Yes.
We hope that we can help you to achieve your goals.
Yes.
So what is the goal? For example, like more funding?
More funding, of course. The thing with funding is we can get funding for programs, and then everyone who's delivering this program is paid. But myself as executive director, no. And my financial administrator who does the payroll, no. There's not funding for our positions in this fund, in these funds. So right now, for example, our positions, the executive director, the financial administrator, and things like our insurance and our annual audit, those things are not covered in the funds we get for programs. So we calculated it just this week, or on Tuesday this week, and we determined that we need $9,000 to survive next year.
$9,000.
$9,000 is what we need in order to survive. If she and I continue, we volunteer, but $9,000 will pay our insurance and our audit fees.
Oh,
We will still be volunteers. So, I mean, if we say more than 9,000 is good, but if we say if we get $9,000 we can cover and we have less stress, then we will continue to volunteer without the stress. That would be nice.